All right, everyone. Looks like it's time to blast the Big Ten. Again, they deserve it again. We will be reading the official announcement from Kevin Warren, Big Ten commissioner, that came out today in response to the push by parents, coaches, players, and specifically the Nebraska 8 that have filed a lawsuit. And again, the vote that was apparently taken by Big Ten commissioners or Big Ten presidents in supporting the final decision by the commissioner and the presidents. Apparently, much debate on whether the previous decisions were made by the president / commissioner or just the commissioner, or whether there were votes taken. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love each and every day with you, the smart fan, the hardcore fan. And if you're not the smart fan, that's why you've come to the right place to stick around and learn from these fine folks in the live chat, and also maybe a little bit from me. All right. Yes, we are the voice of college football here. We invite you to come in, like the videos. Get that out of the way right now. Like the videos and move on and make your comments there to the live chat. And you can certainly send your comments and questions and debate topics to me, or just interact with yourselves. I think most of the best discussion is between all of you in the live chat. So thank you so much for joining in. I see ACC Grit, that would be. I believe that's a football conference, the ACC. Yeah, I think it's all SEC behind me, basically. But the ACC, yes, ACC Grit leading the charge in the live chat right now. We will get to your comments in just a second. It was my aim to, first and foremost, address the Big Ten communication. Thank you, Navy Thomas, for sending that to me today. And also, I wanted to get to not just the comments in the live chat, but also the comments recently to the channel, and then those specifically pertaining to my game-by-game predictions, which have been isolated to the SEC. I've not made my way through the entire SEC yet, but it's fun and amusing and interesting to get those responses to my predictions. But the ACC and the Big 12 are coming. I better get those out soon. We've got football on the field in the ACC coming up on September 10th, Miami hosting UAB. All right, let's get to the Big Ten situation right here. I will not take any phone calls until I read and respond to this announcement. The Big Ten Conference responds to motion for expedited discovery. Let's try this. The Big Ten Conference today filed a response in opposition to the motion for expedited discovery filed by 8 University of Nebraska football players, rejecting each of 3 assertions. The response demonstrates that the Big Ten Council of Presidents and Chancellors, number 1, voted to postpone the fall sports season. Number 2, reached an 11-3 decision, which far exceeds the 60% threshold required by the Big Ten's bylaws. And number 3, based its decision on multiple factors, including the medical advice and counsel of the Big Ten Task Force for Emerging Infectious Diseases and the Big Ten Sports Medicine Committee. The facts are clear that there was indeed a vote that far exceeded the 60% threshold, and the decision by the COP/C was based on the input of several medical and infectious disease experts in the best interests of the health and wellness of student athletes and the surrounding communities among the 14 member institutions. The Big Ten asks that the motion be denied. Okay. The Big Ten Conference continues to share the disappointment that student athletes and families are feeling, and as typically is the closing paragraph of any of these type communications, it's not necessarily telling us much of anything. The Big Ten returns to competition task force will continue to be transparent as it, yes, transparent in the Big Ten decision and communication, transparent, yes, as it actively considers options to get back to competition when it is safe to play. So I have not read any follow-up to this, so I am coming in with a completely blank slate and no reference point in regards to what has been decided and announced today, other than just reading that for the very first time. So anything you guys can provide in regards to context, certainly I've kept up with the situation leading into today. I pretty much aired my thoughts on our Ohio State show in particular. We had a call-in show last night in regards to the Big Ten contemplating a college football season that would start the final weekend of November. That makes no sense. I gave certainly reasons why, and we can dive into those later. The spring season makes no sense either. If you're going to be able to play in the fall, starting the weekend of Thanksgiving, then you can certainly play in October, and I have outlined why. There is really no defense for the Big Ten playing winter or spring sports that are traditionally fall sports. There is no medical reason. There is no reason at all, and that should be the only reason given for any postponement or cancellation would be medical and health. That's the situation we're dealing with. If they want to say it's a legal situation, they could truly be transparent. Or if they wanted to say it's a political decision, well, of course, they can't say that. But if they wanted to be completely transparent, they may want to say that. That would be true transparency, to say this is legal and political. Has nothing to do with anybody's safety. Has nothing to do with health. That has all been debunked many times. We did it here from the outset, and people a lot smarter than us and more medically educated and closer to the situation, and who have more time to research and analyze the situation, have certainly given even more in-depth and medically backed reasons why all these decisions have made no sense since going back to the second week of August, when the Big Ten decided to cancel its season. All right, let's get to the live chat, see what you guys have, and we'll take it from there. Phil, go Noles, of course. Phil, and of course, I've introduced a topic here and a few other topics regarding my predictions, and also regarding, in particular, this Big Ten announcement today. But you guys know you produce the show. You produce the show. I am merely the host. Your calls and your comments in the live chat produce the show. So I will respond to anything related to college football. Far less politics than last night. Not because I received criticism, because I think some people enjoyed the conversation because it did relate to college football. Others did not, and I'm not scared away by that. But because we are dedicated to college football. Now we're in a situation, and have been over the last 5 months now, where the medical situation, and regardless of what end of the spectrum you fall, whether it be the hoax end of the spectrum or all the way to this is the worst pandemic and worst health threat in the history of the country end of the spectrum, I've certainly stated my opinion where I fall. Regardless, it has impacted college football, so we've had to talk about it. Race relations, as has been the response. Now, if there was just race relations issues out there, we would not address it. But once college football players address it, coaches address it, institutions and conferences address it, and it impacts the play on the field, the schedule, it impacts the game, we have to address it. So for those of you who say stick to the games, I think you understand. If you look at 10,000 videos on college football on my channel, we more than anyone stick to college football. But when there are issues that impact the games, we address the issues. Mark, which national championship team had the most losses the year prior to winning the championship? I don't know, was just wondering. Well, Phil, I will put this in the category, although I certainly respect and appreciate your question. This is what I consider a Google question. So I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I am about 99% sure that if I sat here and went through the entire list of college football national champions, that I could give you the answer from my knowledge. but it could be Googled. You could either Google that exact question, or you could just go national championship by national championship by national championship. The Florida team in 2006 with Chris Leak at quarterback, backed up by Tim Tebow, coached by Urban Meyer, had lost 5 games the previous season. Hang on just a second. No. They lost 5 games in Ron Zook's final season in 2004. Urban Meyer took them over in 2005. I believe they went 10-3. So that's only 3 losses. All right, forget them. So let's say just recently, we're not going to be able to find the answer because most of the teams that have been winning over the past 10 years have been the elite teams that have not had down seasons. 2019, LSU lost 3 games the previous season. 2018, Clemson lost 2 games the previous season. 2017, Alabama lost 1 game in the previous season. 2016, Clemson lost 1 game the previous season. 2015, Clemson lost 4 games the previous season. In 2014, after beating Oklahoma in the postseason. 2014, Ohio State lost 2 games in 13. 2013, Florida State lost, I believe, 2 games in 2012 when they won the Orange Bowl. 2012, Alabama certainly had a great season in 2011 because they were back-to-back national champions. 2011, Alabama lost 3 games the previous season, and we could go on and on and on and on and on. 2010, Auburn, I believe, was just an 8-5 team in 2009. So there's your first 5-loss team. Florida 2008, LSU 2007, and here we go.
The call will start.
Caller number 1, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Nate Great. Don't be late, a.k.a. Nate Kingston.
Nate, I wish you would stop making me feel bad by telling me that I'm late every time you announce your name. You're telling me don't be late, and that's after I was already late. So it just kind of makes me feel bad.
I'm sorry.
It's all right, Nate. Just kidding with you. How you doing?
Oh, okay. Good. So I heard that you said the Big Ten didn't really tell much about the vote. Well, they said 3 teams are Ohio State and Iowa and Nebraska, but that's the only 3 teams that want to play, but they might split up to different conferences with their play, or what do you think?
Okay, so if I'm understanding the communication today, the announcement from the Big Ten, they are responding to the allegations that were filed by the 8 University of Nebraska players that had assertions that there was a vote to postpone the season. So they had assertions that were responded to by the Big Ten, which basically about not being transparent or explaining the reasoning for the decision. And so the Big Ten showed another level of transparency by basically saying we did vote to postpone the fall season. So it wasn't just a decision by the commissioner, but that there was a vote. Number 2, they unveiled for the first time the exact count of the vote, which was 11-3, and that met the requirements of the bylaws. And that number 3, based on its decision on the multiple factors, that they were making this decision based on the health and safety of the players. So that's all they've said to here. And so unless I'm not understanding this is just in response to the suit that was filed by the 8 Nebraska players that the Big Ten was not being transparent and not communicating the reasoning for its decision. But the Big Ten could still go forward and institute the season that's being considered in the fall, I believe, unless somebody's going to correct me about any other announcement that's have been made.
So, yeah, I know what you're saying, but like you said earlier in the video, that I don't know if the Big Ten wants to do like a. I was listening to Pigskin Pete like on last Friday.
Pigskin P, why would you listen to him?
I don't know.
I'm just kidding with you, Nate. Pigskin's a great guy.
He is, but he's talking about the Big Ten like playing in like after the bowl games, which is like unbelievable. Makes no sense, and I agree with that, and it makes no sense. And plus, the Big Ten teams is going to be late for the ball games. I mean, like late date wise, and plus it doesn't make any sense if they do it. So, I mean, I don't think they should do that. I would just do the no bye weeks option. Just get the season done with and then do the bowl games.
Well, nobody's talking about bowl games, period, at this point.
I know. I'm just saying. I like the ahead of time, but I mean, I get what you're saying. But okay, Mark. I'll let you get the other calls, and it's good talking to you.
Thanks, Nate. We always appreciate your call, sir. You have a great night.
You too. You too.
Nate the Great, don't be late. All right, ACC Grid has a lot of comments about the Big Ten and talking about splitting conferences and so forth and so on. Understand, for that to happen, it would take for it to permanently happen. I know that there was comments made by particular coaches, and understand it's one thing for coaches and players to make comments about wide-ranging changes and adjustments to conferences and organizations. It's another thing when presidents and chancellors make those statements, because they know and have to deal with the legalities and the money and the big lift that would take. So there would have to be a whole lot of lawyers and a whole lot of money involved with splitting conferences and moving conferences and having particular institutions leave conferences and rewriting contracts and all that. It'd take a long time. Just understand that anytime even a school like Nebraska, Missouri, Texas A&M, Penn State, ones that we've seen, Colorado, in the last 20 to 25 years, leave a conference and go to another conference, it's usually announced about 3 years before it actually happens. And that's for one school. We're not talking about tearing apart conferences. We're dealing with a lot of legalities and money. Good to see Null Blooded, ACC Grit, and Gator Hater Null Nation. Oh my goodness, yes. Mickey, the Big Ten is a mess. A rookie commissioner, not expecting players, parents, fans, and the talking heads in the media to push back and call him out. Damage control is not his strong suit, a PR nightmare. So Mickey, let's understand off the top that while I agree with everything you just said, crisis management is difficult, because the word in and of itself, crisis, means that it is a dire, urgent, immediate situation that is complex. So it's never easy. Just look at national disasters, catastrophes that are far-reaching, unexpected, and were there missteps? You can look at the best recovery, the best, most heroic situations in our country's history, and you can look at all the missteps. There are going to be missteps. There are going to be mistakes made. There's going to be confusion. There's going to be misinformation. There's going to be steps taken in one direction and then information found out that leads to a different decision or a change of course. All those things are understandable. What's not understandable is, number one, making the decision when they did. Number two, not being in sync with the other conferences. And when I say that, I mean being blind to the direction of the other conferences. I can respect one of the conferences saying, hey, the other four are going their way based on their information and their approach and their insight into the information. We disagree and we're doing this. But by all indications, the Big Ten misread, did not collaborate effectively and understand where the other three conferences were headed, and maybe assumed that they held more influence and power than they did. And they took a certain course, saw that everybody left them behind, and that was a misstep that the Big Ten took. Then obviously, just in regards to the explanation, the reasoning, the cause for the decision, completely miscommunicated, botched, either honestly and truthfully miscommunicated in an innocent way, or I believe deceptively and ineffectively communicated, trying to hide the real reasons. Litigation that can basically not be disputed. Political, I know that may be an unpopular stance that I'm taking, but I believe that it's also politically motivated. I can't prove it, but it only makes sense. But I might be wrong. Does the Big Ten commissioner get canned soon? So, as is the case, let's understand that the result always determines the fate of a high-ranking official. Even if they make a good move and it doesn't turn out well, then they have to be the scapegoat. And if they make a blunder, but it can be covered up or it can be saved by the heroics of somebody else or by sheer luck or coincidence, then their job can be rescued and their legacy. In this case, he's not going to get canned now because we don't know the result. And I might be wrong. Again, he could get fired tomorrow. But that would surprise me because the verdict is going to come based on the conclusion of this ACC, SEC, and Big 12 season. That is going to be one of the determining factors of the success and the perspective on whether the Big Ten made the right move. If the season collapses on the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12, then Kevin Warren's going to look smarter. If the Big Ten, the best case scenario for the Big Ten would be if they were able to play a season that starts in November and complete the season after the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 could not complete a season earlier. The odds of that happening are minute because I don't think there's any higher risk, at least the way things look right now, playing in late September than playing in late November. And the only advantage the Big Ten would have in that scenario is that the odds are less that there will be an issue because they only have to deal with one league and 14 teams as opposed to 3 leagues and 38 teams plus all the other teams that they're playing non-conference. So there are more factors and variables that could go wrong for the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 versus the Big Ten playing a season unto itself. So I would not expect there to be a decision on Kevin Warren's fate until there's a conclusion to this chapter, a conclusion at least. Now, we may have a different perspective in 3 years or 5 years, but at least through this fall season, winter season into the spring, when we have a better understanding of who was successful in their decision making and who was not. And if myself and the public are correct, or what appears to be most of the public are correct right now, then the Big Ten's made the wrong decision, and Kevin Warren's going to be on a very hot seat. Good to see Dale as well. We got Roger Smith online from Greenville, South Carolina. Got Jay on the line. Good to see you as well. FSU fan. Yes, Nebraska desperately wanted to play. If there's anyone who wanted to play, based on the response that we're seeing from players, coaches, and parents, it's Ohio State and Nebraska, which is definitely representative of those states when it comes to playing football. And it seems as though the Big Ten and its footprint is showing in this situation the red/blue nature of its constituency, where you have institutions and academia which tend to sway on the side of the decision that was made versus the common people of these mostly red states that want freedom and want to play football and are skeptical of some of the measures that are being taken in this country during this pandemic. So skipping through these pretty quick, because what basically happens most of the time is that I get behind and I'm not able to catch up to these. And then when somebody makes a comment, it throws off the whole chat and I get way behind and now I can't find my place. And that's nobody's fault. But if you guys could see what I see, it's that the chat gets shifted when somebody makes a comment and then I lose track. Okay. We've got Line Mountain there. Ohio State, Nebraska, Iowa are the three schools that voted against postponing the fall season. Michigan President Mark Schlissel voted to cancel the season, and we know his medical background. Jay, look at the Big Ten states opposed to the season, include the Pac-12 schools, and you have an answer. The 2008 Gators would be the answer to the question by, I believe it was Mike. Who was it? It's one of our Florida State fans. I don't remember now. We've got too many. So there was a question about what national championship team was coming off the most losses the previous season. Well, that 2008 Florida team lost 4 games the year before. They went 9-4. They lost to Michigan in the Capital One Bowl. I don't believe that's the answer. I gave you an Auburn team that lost 5 games the year before. I'm almost positive. This is, again, another time that we've seen Jason predict Tennessee to go 50-0. Claude, the voice is feeling good. Yeah, the voice is feeling great. Ric Flair, I'm almost positive, you can double check me on this, that Florida 2017 did not go 8-5. I'm almost certain they went 9-4. Give it a look. BW, love your support of your precious Aztecs. Love it. Unfortunately, not playing football this year. Dale, I don't know if they could re-vote. They say that they're considering this late November season, or there are sources. The Big Ten has not said that it's considering a late November season, but there are what are typically reliable sources saying that the Big Ten is considering a late November season, so they would have a vote on that. I don't know if they could re-vote the original season that they put forward just a few days before they canceled, which was a September 3rd start. Of course, that can't happen right now because the teams aren't prepared to play. So they would have to just take that schedule, and let's say they decided tomorrow, we're playing. Give everybody 30 days. Round that up to the next Saturday, so everybody gets about 35 days to get ready for the season. And you got plenty of time. As I stated the other day, it didn't take me 20 seconds to look at a calendar after I had heard that the Big Ten was considering a late November start to look at a calendar and say, they need to start by October 24th. On October 24th, they could start the season. They could play 10 games. They could have one bye week per team. So 10 weeks, 10 games, 11 weeks. Skip the Big Ten championship game. Do it like the old days and just select the winner based on best record. Have a tiebreaker. Allow that team to have a week off prior to the college football playoff, and they would be able to sync up with everybody else for the college football playoff. Voila, October 24th. And as somebody stated earlier today, make Mark Big Ten commissioner. Cheryl, good to see you. Yeah, this moderator business, I will have to get on that. It's on my to-do list, which is about, I was going to say 37 items long. That's actually an understatement. We'll get to it. I think we've got Cheryl, we've got NCIS Fanatic 21, and we've got Trevor lined up to be moderators. Big Ten better get their act together, otherwise they are in serious jeopardy of losing a ton of college football fans. Jeremy, I posted videos probably about 3 to 4 months ago, so you can check them out right here. Because for me to give the explanation on the Big Ten, you would have to understand the context of the entirety of my realignment of college football, which involves 12-team conferences, 6 conferences, 12 teams each. And we have a altered Big Ten. So just go to my channel, search Big Ten realignment, and you should be able to find that video from about 3 to 4 months ago. Yeah, I just don't think that the Big Ten is going to lose many fans. I think that there will be fans around the nation that will lose their respect for the Big Ten, and there will be, and that will be reflected in maybe some decisions that are made in viewership outside the Big Ten footprint. But I can't imagine that a Michigan fan who's been a Michigan fan their entire life that has to watch the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 for one abbreviated football season is going to suddenly become a Clemson fan. I don't think so. The casual fan, and I know some of these people that are NFL fans and just watch some college football on Saturday and really don't care about any particular team. They typically just watch the better games, the better teams are going to have a thought that the Big Ten isn't as strong, committed, relevant. That could be. I just don't see that the Big Ten is going to lose fans. I might be wrong. There could be minimal impact. Again, if they just miss this one abbreviated season, and then once we get to spring football next year, we're back to normal. We had that discussion the other night, Claude. People were calling about let's leave politics out of sports. Yes. I'll say it this way. We have leagues, we have media outlets that are pushing political and social narratives. And those narratives aren't necessarily complete truth. You know, if we were going to make a statement that I think we could all agree on, then that would be one thing. But this is a complex situation in which, yes, I would think any reasonable, loving person out there wants justice and equality across the board for everyone, but how that's achieved and the analysis, the perspective, and the interpretation of the events that we have seen isn't completely, there's no question, it's not shared by everyone in terms of the right, the wrong, and the response and the justice involved. So I don't believe that those entities should be taking it upon themselves to be judge and jury. But they have made that decision. I think the individual players have social media accounts in which they can use that platform to state whatever they want, politically, socially, and otherwise. They have large platforms to do that. They shouldn't do it in the context of playing a sport. We shouldn't see it on their uniforms. We shouldn't see it on the playing surface. We just shouldn't see it. That's my opinion. What those individual players do with their individual platforms, I believe, unless it is just insanely unjustly hateful, should be allowed as free speech. I'm a big free speech guy. I'm a big freedoms and liberty guy. I have heard some extremely disturbing activity by law enforcement that has been directed by government officials taking away freedoms during this entire 6 month of craziness in this country. NH, love your channel, Mark. It's very informative. Ohio State fans, check out Letterman Row. We have an Ohio State channel, so I would ask everyone who either just wants to see Ohio State content to head on over to MarkRogersTV Ohio State, and you'll just see Ohio State content. But please keep your subscription here because you will see the live show here. You will see Ohio State content that's presented in a different way there. I will say this from time to time, that if you simply want to support the channel and what we do here and appreciate what we do and want to build it and see it last and thrive and prosper, let's say you're not an Ohio State fan, please still go over there and subscribe. Even if you don't do another thing, don't like a video there, don't watch a video there, just subscribe. And even if you don't turn on the bell for the notifications, it still helps the channel. And you could do the same with Ohio State or with the Mark Rogers TV Miami channel. Same thing. We do the same thing there. As we build out those platforms, we will have exclusive content at those places. We're also on Patreon. On Patreon, you get the opportunity to support the effort here. And I'm going to tell you, and be something that Kevin Warren in the Big Ten is not, transparent. I'm not delivering a ton there. And the people that are supporting me there have basically said, Mark, we don't care. We just want to support you. The draw there has been exclusive live streams, which we've done about 12 or 13, in which you are able to come on directly with me and others and talk college football. And that's been a whole lot of fun. And we'll have another one of those upcoming in the next week or so. It was my aim to do it every Thursday night. That's not been possible. But we did it for 3 or 4 consecutive Thursday nights, and we've done a total of 12 or 13 exclusive live streams. Again, that's an opportunity for you to come on as you see the guests do and come on and talk college football with me and with others. And that's been the fun thing. Has not been the conversation necessarily with me, but I've noticed that everybody else just talks to each other, and I just kick back and let you guys talk college football. And it's been a whole lot of fun. The other exclusivity over on Patreon would be my college football predictions, which are rather effective. I'm no expert. I'm not a handicapper, not an odds maker. I just make college football predictions as I have since this ages me, 1982. Maybe I'll dig up my record. I should do that sometime this week leading into the season to say this is what my record. I did this a couple of years ago. I sent a video that was nothing but a scroll of my prediction record in college football year after year after year, both straight up and against the spread and in bowl play, for people to either say that's awesome or that sucks or whatever. You be the judge. Generally, I predict at least 80% correct, top 25 games, 80% right, straight up, and in the high 50s, near 60% against the spread. All the games. And now I've had people that predict games tell me, Mark, you're nuts predicting all the top 25 games. You're killing your record, your percentage, your winning percentage by predicting all the top 25 games. But I just can't help myself. So I do it. I predict all the top 25 games. And I'm typically at 58, 59%. If you know anything about wagering, you have to hit on about 52.5% to win money against the line. All right. Got Mineral Tim here. We've got Mark Thibodeau, Michigan fan. BW, we mentioned. Kyle Pickett, good to see you. I believe Kyle has given up on his candidacy for me as vice president in 2020 with 111 on the line. The number is 860-325-3687. And this is another thing I'm going to ask everyone to do. I'm needy, and I am asking a lot of you tonight. I know that. I understand that. I admittedly know this. But what I'm asking everyone who's watching currently, 111 on the line, and also we'll probably have about 1,500 views once this posts, is that people share this content on social media. There are people that you're connected with on social media who have no idea that we're here talking college football every day. They have no idea. And they could join the fun. Regardless of who they root for, you could let them know. Mark talks about everyone. And obviously, there are only so many hours in the day, so I can't get to everyone. When is the last time I talked about Purdue? Sure, it's been a while. It's been since the last time they played. I don't believe I've talked to any Purdue football since then. Sorry, Michael Hogue. We love you. Big Purdue fan, Michael, big supporter of the channel. But there's only so many hours in the day. So once I'm doing this full time, let's see, we could probably do 3 to 4 exclusive team live streams every day. 5 to 6 days a week, we could get in 25 teams. Instead of just Ohio State, Florida State, and Miami, 20 or 25 other teams. Wouldn't that be awesome? MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Drake Knapp. I called you probably 2 or 3 years ago. It's been the last time I talked to you.
Oh, I recognize your name, sir.
You, man, yeah. Big Alabama fan here. Man, that really stinks about the Big Ten, man. And I know you guys are really crushed about that. I'm just concerned. What you were saying earlier about politics, I think that is what's really driving this. And it's really unfortunate because these kids really want to play. And, I mean, if they would just be transparent about it, I mean, it's almost like they're trying to cover something up, and it's not even a big question they're asking. I mean, what's the obvious answer? They've got political pressure from the outside pushing them to make that decision. It's not something. I mean, they all want to play. I've survived COVID, and I'm an older guy, and you know, I'm older. I mean, over almost 50 now, and overweight and everything else, and I survived it. I know these kids will.
Drake, I'm curious, Drake. If you mind telling us, then I respect your privacy. But if you don't mind telling us, what was your experience with COVID?
It was very limited. Actually, I mean, I had a slight fever, or I felt feverish a couple of days. I felt fatigued. But I've had the flu, like, you know, several times. Obviously, I'm 49. I've had the flu before, and the flu for me was 1,000 times worse. I mean, I don't understand. I don't get it. I mean, I know other people probably have the same. You know, they don't have the same genetic makeup that I have, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with it, and blood type, I hear, and all these other things. But I think this is more political than anything, Mark. I really do, and that's sad. And I'm not here to, you know, toot the horn for any party or anything like that. But I just think that there's some problems there. I think that there's some disingenuous things going on. And again, I have no dog in the fight, but you know, I respect Ohio State. I respect, you know, the Big Ten. They're a great conference, and they should be allowed to play. Those boys have been working their tails off to play, and it's just wrong. I mean, it's really wrong. And I mean, for these guys to make a decision unilaterally, and the truth is, I mean, these are public institutions, right? I mean, how can they not say what their votes are? I mean, they're allowed, they by law can't have that private. I mean, what is it, 13? I think there are 14 teams right in the Big Ten. And I think 13 of them are public institutions.
Yes.
So how can they do this? No, you can't do that. That's wrong.
That's what I thought as well.
I mean, I'm just looking at it as, I mean, from an outside observer, don't have a dog in the fight, other than I like college football and I want good competitive play. And it's just going to be weakened. And it's all politics, Mark. I mean, I'm sorry. It's politics. They don't want, they have a narrative, and they're going to push that narrative to the end of the world with hell or high water. And it's just sad. And by the way, they're going to get sued by these parents. And it ain't just the 8. They were making fun of the 8. It's going to be thousands before it's over with. And they ain't going to be laughing too hard then. That's all I have to say, really. I mean, it's crazy.
I am rooting heavily for the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 to be successful in playing and concluding a championship season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Central Arkansas and Austin Peay played.
They did.
Come on. They can do it. If they can do it, and Ohio State can't, and Nebraska can't, and Michigan can't. Well, they can, but they won't be. They're not allowed. I mean, it's almost like, you know, they say, well, we're gonna bully the Southeast Conference and the ACC, and we're just not gonna let them play. And it's not even the players. It's not the coaches. It's probably not even the athletic directors. It's these presidents and these high academia people that think they know better than everybody else, and they have no science. Well, where's the science?
Yeah, the science isn't going to change. The science isn't going to change in January. So why are they going to play in January?
Absolutely not. Anyway,
if you get something to pass the parents' approval, that speaks volumes. And as you well know, the parents of the Big Ten players have organized to say, we are fully satisfied with the health and safety guidelines at the school, at the football program, and we've seen it. It passes our test. We think everybody's being safe and doing the right things, and everything's clean and taken care of, and everybody's tested, and it's been approved by the parents.
Yeah.
And as you well know, the Big Ten commissioner's son is playing for Mississippi State.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
Hypocritical, really.
He's not opting out.
I mean, obviously not. He's not against his son because he wants his son to have an opportunity to better himself. See, and that's really sad. That's really sad. Anyway, Mark, again, it was great talking to you again. I'm sorry I've been away for so long. But,
well, I appreciate it.
Great talk.
Thank you, sir. Have a great night.
You too.
Appreciate the call from Drake. I recognize that handle from way long time ago. So I'm glad that he still watches us here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Our recent content, we had a post on LSU football this afternoon. We have released our scheduled game-by-game predictions, and I better start hustling because the season is going to be in full force in regards to the Power 5 next Thursday. So I've got about 10 days to get through the rest of the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. But for some reason, you guys aren't necessarily watching. You're commenting on the videos, but not necessarily a whole lot of views on most of them. So if people aren't going to watch, sometimes I test out certain ideas for certain series, and I think people are going to love this. For years and years and years, up until this particular season, off season, I ranked all the schedules. And that took a long time because I just didn't want to say, yeah, that schedule looks tough, and that one, yeah, that's not as tough. And no, I take all 75 schedules and I print them out, and I'd start to, if I looked at Alabama's schedule and Auburn's schedule, obviously there are 5 games for sure that line up that are exact. So basically I would cancel those out, and then I'd start to compare. And it takes a long time to compare 75 schedules, and then I would rank them all. And I would do a series in which I would look at every team's schedule and say, this is the 75th most difficult schedule in the country. And that was always Army. I would take the independents plus the Power 5 conferences, and then I would go all the way up to number 1. And I thought I loved doing it, but people didn't much respond or watch those videos. So I figured this off season, why am I going to spend dozens of hours just mulling over these schedules and building a spreadsheet and comparing schedules? Nobody wants to watch it. And maybe I'll do the same with the game-by-game predictions. We'll see. Seems like people love these call-in shows, so we'll stay with those. All right, Johnny Truth likes that his Miami Canes are playing. Never liked watching the Big 10 or the Big 12 anyway. Ray's in the house. Good to see you. Mineral Tim as well. Yes, good thought that we've talked about here. We've got an Ohio State show that even if you're not an Ohio State or Big Ten fan, especially in situations like this, is a great resource for college football talk. And we have had some great shows. For as much as I hate this situation, we've had some tremendous discussions, and it really has showcased the knowledge and insight and experience from the contributors I have on our Ohio State show in particular, because they're all first-rate writers. Kevin Noon from Rivals, Buckeye Grove, Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts 247 Sports, and Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop have provided their insight into every angle of this and how it's affecting Ohio State and the Big Ten. And that's one topic that we've addressed, that people that are affected economically, whether it's because they have a job that's connected to a business or the stadium or the facility, or they just own a business in town that thrives when college football is being played, those people are impacted. What will the coach hours be for Big Ten teams moving forward? I feel like 12 hours a week isn't effective enough. At Nebraska, for example, we have shut down the training table nutrition facility. That's a great question, BW. Who hires the commissioner? So I don't know if it extends past the university presidents. I wouldn't think so, but that's certainly a catch-22 that you've presented there. When is the last time a conference commissioner was fired? Think about the succession of all the conference commissioners. They have all, to my recollection, in the last 3 to 4 decades, all been able to run their course and retire at their own discretion. So that's a good point that you make there, BW. But Kevin Warren's decision, the way it looks now, and if there's a successful college football season played by the other 3 conferences, is cause for firing. Whether it will be executed because of what BW is pointing out right there is another question. Yeah, that's a famous landmark in college football history, the Texas-Oklahoma game. Richard Nixon was very involved with the Texas-Oklahoma race for the national championship that particular year. And I don't know that he rooted for any particular team or he just got caught up in the Oklahoma-Texas game. I don't know that Richard Nixon is from one of those states, but he also gave a play to George Allen, the head coach of the Washington Redskins, that was run in a pretty big game. He won in some kind of crazy reverse that lost 17 yards or something. All right, where are we? There you go, SEC Dog. Good to see you. Premier Youth Theater. Good to see you as well. Love seeing these new handles. Premier Youth Theater, which I've only probably seen here in the live chat in the last few weeks. We got a Texas Tech fan, which I got to say, Texas Tech fan there, Derwake, that we used to present a lot of Texas Tech football because we had a few guys from, I think it's called Viva the Matadors on SB Nation, come on and talk Texas Tech football back in the days of Mike Leach, then, of course, Tommy Tuberville, and then Cliff Kingsbury. And how he parlayed that record at Texas Tech into an NFL job is anybody's guess. The interview must have been spectacular. Forget my 14-30 record in the Big 12. It's something like that. Yes, Miami could lose to UAB. George, we'll put you to sleep. You might already be there. George, we appreciate it. Good night. See you later. I'm going to listen to Mark while I go to sleep. Is this the service I provide? Claude, praying that we get to play a whole season of football, then the Big Ten will rue the day they decide not to play. Yep. SEC Dog, the Big Ten might be dumber than the Pac-12 because if anything, the Pac-12 at least understood its constituents. Do we hear any response from the Pac-12 and its fan base? No. Number two, if you look at the statistics, at least there is more of a valid reason in that part of the country based on what's happening in particular in California, Southern California, or at least at the time of the decision. And I got to say that for as much as I was keeping up with the numbers from mid-March up until maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I haven't really kept up with the numbers, and I've been concentrating more on the context of the numbers and what the numbers really mean. And we gave a statistic, I believe, last night that outlined, you have your numbers. It's almost looking at a final score of a football game. You know what? It's not even that accurate because the final score of a football game typically gives us a pretty good feel for the game. LSU beat Oklahoma 63-28 in the college football playoff, and that game was 63-28. If anything, it was worse than 63-28. It was 49-14 at halftime. So it was 14-14 in the second half when it didn't much matter. So LSU crushed them, and that was reflected in the final score. Clemson beat Ohio State 29-23. That might have a little bit more context that needs to be explained, but Clemson won a close game as indicated by the score. Now in the national championship game, we had LSU over Clemson 42-25. It was a close game through 3 quarters and into the fourth quarter. I believe at one point it was like 28-25, and then LSU took it home. So 42-25 was pretty accurate. LSU was the better team, but it took a good 50 minutes of playing time to get us to the final 10 minutes in which LSU proved that. So final scores in football are actually more accurate than the final results of the death rates and the case rates of this COVID disease. But even final scores in football don't tell us anything close to the full story. And even if you look at a box score, you've got to watch the game. And in this situation of this pandemic, you have to know demographics, areas of the country. You have to know the underlying determinations that are made about marking and labeling a death for the cause that's given. You have to understand where that's coming from and the motivation for that, and if it's accurate. Yeah. There's a lot there to unravel. The accuracy of the test. Yeah, Cheryl, the Big Ten did have the most money of any conference in college football. Oh boy, this just happened, and now I've lost track because it jumps on me, and yeah, I'm just going to pick it up from somewhere. So I always apologize for that. Sometimes I lose part of the chat. Spencer Rebos Max. This is the first time I've ever seen your name in the chat. Curtis Schull. First time ever in the chat. Man. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. It's great to see you. Would love to know how long you've been watching and who you root for. Christian roots for the Buckeyes, and this is the first time for Christian here. This channel is growing because of all of you. Thank you so much. And for you new timers that are just finding us, I hope you like it here. Check out the videos. If you have any suggestions, requests, recommendations, bring them on. The only time I ever turn down a request is if somebody gives me a request and I just know nobody's going to watch that video. And it requires a lot of research. That has been the only time I have turned down a request, when somebody has said, somebody tells me, I'd like a full explanation and an exhaustive history on Kansas football. Okay, I'm going to get 37 views, and it's going to take me mountains of time, unless you want me to give you the short version of the history of Kansas football. It sucks. Boop, it was good. Yeah, it was okay. It was good. Yeah, it sucks. Sucks. Gone. Okay, we're here, 2020. Todd Reesing. Woo! When was it? Like the late 60s they were good. Todd Reesing, 2007. Okay. There it is. Good to hear from you as well. BPWN3R. Both he and his wife had COVID, mild flu. And this is not to in any way disrespect those people that have had COVID and have suffered. One of our good friends here at the channel. I'm not going to name him now, but he is publicly talked about it, but I won't in respect of him, since he's not here to discuss it himself, but he's talked about how sick he got. So different people respond different ways, but the statistics are so overwhelming about age and underlying conditions, serious underlying conditions causing the death rate. Gary Klein, another one. I've never seen your name in the live chat. Thank you so much for joining us as a Michigan fan. I am humbled, honored, love to see these new names. But of course, Cheryl, Navy Thomas, Jordan, on and on. You guys, you know, you're my core. I appreciate you. Everybody else who's been watching and contributing for a long time, of course. And we pushed over 21,000 earlier today. Over 21,000 subscribers. Thank you. Dale Campbell telling us Central Arkansas players and coaches had 0 positive tests. Tube Seller's been commenting a lot recently. Thank you for that. Getting even. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Mike Williams, big Canes fan, big contributor to the channel. Thank you so much. Always appreciated. If we want to keep this going, 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. I am currently looking for an updated video camera, a laptop, a software system that will provide better graphics, and we can hopefully keep the comments. The reason I love this application right here, it's called StreamYard, and as soon as I was led to it, and what the selling point above anything was that this was fast and easy, and I could take your live chat comments directly to the screen. But when I'm able to upgrade the graphics and software package with another PC, another camera, and a number of other hookups that need to be involved, then hopefully I can keep that functionality with the comments being posted to the screen, but also I can keep the phone number there, hopefully sponsor. Hello, anybody out there can sponsor Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Bring them in. We need sponsors, whether you're going to sponsor a specific show or specific types of content or whatever, the call-in show, please, we need sponsors. I have been researching this on YouTube, and based on our viewership, if we received the rate of sponsorship that seems to be verified by YouTubers that we should receive here, then we could make tremendous strides. But I'm not a salesman. I don't have those kind of contacts. But I'm asking you that if you know of anyone that would be a great connection to get a sponsorship deal, or you yourself are owner of a business and would like to advertise or sponsor us here, then certainly contact me at MarkRogersTV@gmail. And the word out there on White Knight, good to see you. The word out there on YouTube is that once you hit about 5,000 subscribers, that you have plenty of influence and a strong enough base to have sponsors. And we're at 21,000. Some of you post a certain quote unquote facts in the live chat that I can't verify. Therefore, I think they would be good information to know, but since I can't verify the accuracy, I won't post them. I also typically don't post conversations between yourselves unless it's funny and it makes sense to everybody. It's explained to the point where it's going to make sense, even though it's a private conversation or a direct conversation between the two of you. I'm not going to post anything hateful, maybe unless it's in good fun, trash talking to the screen, but I'm not going to post anything hateful, and hopefully we don't have that, and we typically don't. So I thank all of you that you know how to trash talk and put down the other team and the other conference and do all that. That's fun. That's good-hearted fun, but nothing offensive in all the ways that we know are hot button subjects. Brian W., thank you. Appreciate that. So we've got Florida State Talk each and every Tuesday night. So we'll be back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Florida State Football Talk live. Miami, we do every week. We have not been able to pin down a time and probably won't. That's the reason that you subscribe and turn on the bell for the notifications. Ohio State as well. We believe we will be back on Friday with Ohio State Talk, but that's kind of difficult, again, to pin down consistently every week. James Mills, I've never seen your name. James, how long you've been watching? Hope you enjoy the show. Who do you root for? And welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. James, good to see you. Okay. This is at the point in the conversation. So, of course, the comments that I post at the screen are behind my actual conversation here, unfortunately, because by the time I get to your comments, I'm like 10 or 15 minutes into the show. So I'm a little bit behind, but Adonbe, I appreciate that you're asking for a Florida State game-by-game season matchup. So if I don't do the complete SEC, ACC, and Big 12, I will pick out those particular popular or quality teams to get to. So I may not hit Duke or Georgia Tech or Kansas, but I would love to do everyone. Some people accuse me at times of playing favorites of Ohio State, Miami, Florida State would be the obvious targets because of the live shows each week. But if you really watch what I do here, that's not the case. SEC dog, Georgia fan, I would love to do a Georgia live stream. It could be extremely popular, would be great. Would love to do a Georgia live stream every week. But there's only so much time, and I need good contributors. And I need people to watch it. I started a Notre Dame live stream 6 months ago, probably. We did about 8 of them. I admit that they weren't consistent every week, and they were a bit shaky. I really didn't promote them. They were decent shows. The contributors were good, but just didn't catch on, and nobody was watching, and just let it go. All right, getting even. Mark, has Georgia been relevant lately? Please tell us when was the last time Georgia has been relevant, because Georgia fans are cheerleaders for the SEC now. Okay, getting even. I don't know who you root for. Can't tell from the hat there. You're probably talking to the wrong guy if you want me to pound and be condescending of Georgia football. Okay. What does relevant, anytime somebody throws out, when is the next time? When is Florida going to be good? When is so-and-so going to be good? When is so-and-so going to be relevant? You have to define that. What does relevant mean? To some of you, it sounds like you mean that that particular program has to win a national championship to be relevant. I don't agree with that. So I did a video and posted a video about a month to 6 weeks ago that I enjoyed. And basically I took every elite program in the country currently, or what we think of as an elite program. Florida State, Penn State, Miami, some teams that are not typically or not currently elite, Notre Dame, Michigan, but are relevant or have been relevant, elite. And I looked at their history and I was noting the last time they were down. It's a good video. Check it out. I was making a point there in a number of ways. And I had to define. You can't just say they're down, they're this, they're relevant. What do you mean? So my definition of a program being down was not competing for conference championships, not coming down to the final week or two of the season for a period of time, for 3 to 4 years, not for one season. If you're chugging along 11-1, 11-1, 10-2, 12-0, competing for national championships and conference championships, then all of a sudden 1 year you go 7-5, and then boom, you're back up to 11-1, 10-2. Well, it wasn't that you were down. That's 1 year. A down period of time for a program has to last at least 3 to 4 years for me. So it had to last 3 to 4 years, and it had to be a time in which that particular program was not competing for its conference championship as defined by not being in the race, seriously in the race, the final couple weeks of the season. For Georgia football, the last time that happened was in the late 90s. So for me, Georgia football is relevant right now because they're recruiting in the top 5 in the nation. They're finishing in the top 5 in the nation. They just played in a national championship game and went to overtime in a national championship game 2 years ago. And then the next season played the number 1 team in the SEC championship game and led by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. That's not relevant? If we're turning our TVs on in December and that particular school is routinely playing in championship games that are determining conference championships and college football playoff appearances and national championships, then that school is relevant. Now, if you want to say, when is the next time do you think Georgia is going to win a national championship or get over the hump? That's a different question. Has Georgia been relevant lately? Yes, they're as relevant as just about anybody. The only 2 schools, the only 2 football programs that could say for sure we are more relevant, definitely more relevant than Georgia, maybe 3. I will say Alabama and Clemson for sure. Ohio State dominating the Big Ten. Yes, I'll put them ahead of Georgia. Is LSU right this second? Yes, they just won a national championship. But LSU, for the previous 8 seasons going back to the 2011 national championship game appearance, was losing 3 to 5 games per season, had not had a season in which it had lost less than 3 games. Georgia's relevant. We talked about that last night. Appreciate that, Brian. James, the people rule if they can organize. If they can agree and organize, the people do rule. But the problem is nobody can organize. I'm going to use an example that is far less important, but it makes the same point. I said for years and years when people were complaining about salaries in Major League Baseball, you're supporting the product. So as long as the product is supported, then the point is not going to be driven home to the players and the owners that the money is out of control. What is going to shake them up and wake them up is going to be empty stadiums for at least a month. And I'm not talking about empty stadiums because of COVID. I'm talking about empty stadiums back when people had the freedom to buy a ticket, which I believe that they should have the freedom to buy a ticket to a certain extent and be able to social distance. But back to your point, baseball fans, organize. You can still love baseball, support baseball, watch it on TV all you want. Organize and say, we are banning attendance of Major League Baseball games for 1 month. For the entire month of April next season, you are not going to see us. The stadiums would be empty. That would shake up the establishment. And that's just one example. Same thing here with more important issues. Buckets for Life, thank you for the kind comment there. And all of you. Dennis Wilson in the chat. Good to see you, Dennis. Swag in the building. Yes, Nixon's from California. Thank you, Adon Bay. I did know that. That was back here somewhere. I hadn't thought of that in years and years and years. Did Richard Nixon dot the I? I believe there was a president who dotted the I at Ohio Stadium, and I believe that was Richard Nixon. I believe the only non-band members to dot the I in Script, Ohio are Jack Nicklaus, Woody Hayes. I think it's Richard Nixon. I have to look that up. Getting even. Hey, Mark, has Georgia won anything of relevance since Keith Jackson was in charge of college football on ABC? I think I responded. I think winning college football playoffs and SEC championship games are relevant. If they're not, you're basically just asking, you might as well just ask, has Georgia won a national championship? Then you don't even need me to address the question because you can Google that. 1980 against Notre Dame at the Sugar Bowl. Yes. Herschel Walker. Yes. Watch the game. Buck Bellew, Terry Hogue, Georgia. Yes. 1980. You're asking, are they relevant? Then we have to define relevant, and then we go from there. And we break it down as I just did. Or if you're just saying, when is the last time Georgia won a national championship? Then we've got a prediction of UAB over Miami. And nobody's talking about the Pac-12. Yeah, I have not heard anything from Pac-12 fans anywhere. And I gave reasons earlier as to why I thought that was the case. Oh boy, this is what happens as I lose track. Okay, I'm lost now. All right, forgive me because I'm not going to be where I need to be. We're going to click on that. I did see that come in. Thank you so much, Brian W., for the contribution there on the super sticker, whatever that is. I still don't understand the concept of the super sticker, but I don't need to. I just appreciate the contribution. Thank you so much. I am humbled. I've tried to explain this last night and I failed miserably. It is difficult for me and I feel slightly embarrassed, but I shouldn't, but I do. full disclosure. But what I'm trying to do here, what I am doing with your help, I can't do it. I'm doing the same thing right now with 21,000 subscribers, and I'm not bragging about that because, again, that's because of you. I'm just noting we went over 21,000. We went over 21,000 subscribers just in the last day. That I'm doing the same thing that I was doing when I had 100 subscribers or 21 subscribers. It's really not a whole lot different. This is all because of you. And what the aim and the goal and the vision is to support me, make this sustainable in terms of an income, and then also beyond that to then provide the type of product aesthetically, the set, the camera, the lighting, the travel, everything involved, the graphics and so forth, to make this as something that we can all be proud of. We're not there yet. So that's where your contributions go. So I appreciate that. And another one has come in. So Chuck, thank you so much. I will get that to the screen soon. Yeah, I love doing the live shows. This is what I love more than anything, is talking directly to all of you. And another thing that the finances would allow me to do if we were to go full time would be to actually prepare for these things. So I hope you understand and appreciate that I just click on the record button and we just go to work here live. I could name the names of the people that you know, whether that be on television or online, that prepare for hours and hours and hours and have producers and directors and research people and all those contributors to prepare for a live show that we just, bam, go to it. I was on the phone on a personal phone call that was fairly weighty just minutes before I came on. So I jotted, this is what I typically do. I jot like 4 things down just to remind me of where we're headed, and I haven't even gotten to any of those except for the Big Ten decision. But Chuck, and again, that was also Getting Even. Thank you so much for the contributions. Also keep in mind that, as you will see in the description section of any of the videos, that you can go directly to Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App and search Mark Rogers TV. You find me right there, and you can contribute directly and bypass YouTube. Wink, wink. So thank you so much for the contributions here. I will always take your contributions, of course, here. And full disclosure of where those go is that in the live shows with the various contributors that we have, we share with them as their contributions and their expertise on their particular teams is invaluable. And then also, again, I'm currently looking at a new video camera, new software for graphics that's going to be a learning curve of epic proportions for me, and a new PC that goes along with it, and a ring light would be much better than the current light that I have that I'm fighting with my outdoor lighting that serves me well at times during the day, but I fight at certain times of the day. So I've got a lot to learn here, a lot to take care of. I'm not crazy about the set. So I bought this rinse and repeat backdrop about whatever it was, about 6 months ago. And I just had a thought about it looking different than it does. It came out okay, but not crazy about it. Probably paid too much for it. And it just didn't have the impact or the effect. Took some of my old Sports Illustrateds and I framed those on the back wall. And of course, we've got the helmets. So, just look at the helmets. What do they cost? About $15 per pop, something like that. We've got about 25 of those. So I appreciate you guys taking interest in all this. I do, because I love doing this. The live shows, as somebody just mentioned that they like the live shows. I love the live shows. This is what I love doing more than anything. we had a whole lot of fun for those of you who were not around for last college football season, because what I would do was I would set up, I'd be able to watch the games, and then as soon as we were near the end of that noon window, around 3 o'clock, and we could catch those final couple drives of the best games, I would come on live, we'd watch those together, and we'd analyze the noon games. And I'd have that DVR just cranking the 3:30 games, because I probably extended a little bit late and had missed like the first quarter of the 3:30 games. But I'd have them on DVR, and I'd start watching them, and I'd knock out the commercials, and I'd catch up to it. And then boom, about 7 o'clock, near the end of the 3:30 games, we're back on here live doing live stream, taking your calls. And then the same thing after the primetime games. And then sometimes I'd get even crazy after those late Pac-12 games, and I'd come on here like 2:30 in the morning, and we would take calls and analyze the Pac-12 games and the Mountain West games that were wrapping up. This season, to my earlier point about this being full-time and that being the dream, is that I'm not going to be able to devote quite as much on Saturdays because of my work obligations being shifted to Saturday for the first time in 15 years. Something I'm not happy about, but that's the way it goes. All right, where are we on all this? Mickey says, Mark, sit at desk, back it up 10 feet from the camera. Okay, so there's a few things here. So I'm using a laptop camera, the actual webcam now. But a few weeks ago, I was not. I was using this camera in particular, which made for a much clearer shot, number one. It's not an expensive camera, but it's a decent industry camera, Logitech camera that's used by a lot of people. And it presented a clearer picture, but also widened the focus so you would see more of the set. Okay, I can only back up the camera so much because it's a webcam, Mickey, and I wouldn't be able to reach it. I wouldn't be able to deal with the live chat. So I can't do that. So yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be changed. The other thing is that for these live call-in shows, since I need to take your calls, and because here's another piece of equipment I've invested in that hasn't served me well to date, is an audio mixer. And for some reason, my tech guy and I cannot figure out why we're not able to take the calls through here. This is what it was intended for, is for, I use it for this, but I can't use it for that and the calls. It's not working. Therefore, we've got the, the Jimmy rigged phone to take the phone calls. And so again, these are just a lot of technicalities and operational issues that need to be worked through, because I want the call-in process to be professional, and it's not right now. It's awful. Don't like it. I need 3 people. I need a tech/operations person. I need a marketing person. And I need a salesperson. If I could get those 3, and if I only could get 2, I'd probably go sales, number 1. Tech and operational, slight edge over the marketing person, because I can kind of do the marketing to a certain extent. There we go, James. Long time, Mark. My colors are scarlet and gray. Everything else is just silly, especially puke and boo. Chuck. Chuck, we've addressed that many times, and man, that's a war to be waged right there in regards to the speculation on how not playing a football season, if the other football season, the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC are successful, how far back that sets the Big 10. Financially, of course, they lose a full football season. And as Cheryl pointed out in the live chat earlier, the Big 10, as many in College Football Nation would incorrectly predict, I believe, or be informed that the Big 10 is the richest conference. It's close between the SEC and the Big 10, but the Big 10 was a full $8 to $10 million further out in revenue. And I think a lot of that had to do with the updated Fox contract with the Big 10. But this past football season, the Big 10 made the most money per team and is right there with the SEC typically. Thanks, Dennis. We'll be fine. Appreciate that, SEC Dog. I know you have a whole lot of fun with JP in particular. Getting even, I know winning a natty is being relevant. So then why ask the question? You're asking me when was the last time Georgia was relevant? Or I think you did ask me, okay, getting even. I got you. You were asking me the next time, when will Georgia? I don't remember your question exactly. I believe it had to do with the past. When was the last time? Have they been relevant lately? But your definition of winning a natty as being the determining factor of being relevant. And I don't agree with that, but that's not the point. Even if I don't agree with it and you're right, let's say, and that's equals being relevant is winning a national championship. I've debunked the national championship system a million different ways. For anybody that's watched me for a long time has known that I am not a fan of the national championship. That just means you're really good. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've won an objective playoff system. You've won an invitational. But if your definition of relevancy is winning a national championship, then we don't need to have a discussion, or you don't need to ask me the question. Just look it up. Mark, how many top recruiting classes has Georgia had? Come on, Mark. What have they done as of late? Again, they've recruited extremely well. Now, I'm not basing their relevance on recruiting at all. Texas has produced top 5 to 10 recruiting classes and been losing 5 or 6 games for most of the last 10 years. Is Texas relevant? Yes, they are relevant to college football. They would have to win 2 or 3 games for 20 years not to be relevant. They're relevant to college football. They mean something. They have status, they have money, they have power, they have fans. They're relevant. Now I'm separating that statement to, are they relevant on the field? Meaning, do they have influence on championships? Texas, no. Excluding 1 year in 2018 when they played in the Big 12 championship and took Oklahoma to the final 5 minutes and beat them earlier in the season, then won the Sugar Bowl. Excluding that season, Texas has not been relevant since 2009 for sure, of course, when they went to a national championship game, and 2010, I believe they went like 10-3 the next year. That's the last time Texas has been relevant on the field, but they are relevant to college football. USC is still relevant to college football. They matter. They're not relevant on the field right now. But it's only been people. I think we as sports fans live too much in the immediate moment. Yes, USC won a Rose Bowl 3 years ago. They won the Pac-12 championship. And yes, I'm sure there's some snickers out there about winning a Pac-12 championship. But it was only 5 years ago that you could have debated that the Pac-12 was the second best conference in the country. So things change and can change quickly. It is. It's a nut, but not an edible nut. Oh boy, that's a great question. Just hang on to your credit card. I don't want to do anything that would jeopardize your credit or your credit situation, but I appreciate your thought process. But if you've got Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App, then you can contribute through one of those services, and they only take minutes, if that, to set up. But I don't want to compromise or have you uneasy about any of that. Okay, Mark. They, meaning Georgia, have had a top 10 recruiting class year in, year out for the past 20 years, but they always crap their pants. I believe they're not crabbing their pants in the big stage. Well, not always. No, they haven't always. Define big. You know what a big stage is? You know what a big game is for a lot of teams in the country? It's not a big game until they lose it. Follow me. For a lot of teams, because of our expectation of that program, we basically say that's not a big game. That's not a big game until they lose a game. And then it becomes a big game. When Georgia beats Notre Dame, it's that's not a big deal. That's not a big game. If they would have lost it, then suddenly they lost a big game. Ohio State's beating Wisconsin and Penn State and Michigan. Those aren't big games until they lose one of them. So Georgia is winning big games. When you win a conference championship, when you win a college football playoff game, you're winning big games. When you win the games that you have to win in your division and in your conference to get to the conference championship game, you cannot tell me that those aren't big games. Getting even. Who do you root for? Why the vendetta against Georgia? Why does Georgia bother you so much? And I'm not saying that Georgia's perfect or Georgia's the best or Georgia's not tripped up and been flawed and that Kirby Smart needs to get it done, seal the deal, get it done. He was a 2nd and 26 away from getting that done, or 2nd and 18, whatever it was against Tua, but they didn't. But that team was good enough to win the national championship. When you are playing in overtime in a national championship game and you had a 13-point lead, no, the result is that they did not win the national championship. Nobody should be claiming that they won the national championship because they lost the game, but they were good enough to win the national championship. So Kirby Smart put them in position to win a national championship. It's almost like Jim Harbaugh could have won a Super Bowl. Did he? No, but he can't throw the pass that could have won the Super Bowl. His team lost by 5. They're in the red zone. They're throwing the ball in the end zone. He can't walk on the field and complete the plays. We can't award a Super Bowl for Jim Harbaugh. We can't hand him the trophy because his team did not win it. But he put his team in it. He didn't get to the Super Bowl and lose 35-3, where we could say, okay, well, they didn't belong there. They were not even close to being the best team. They were by a good margin the 2nd or 3rd or 4th best team because, man, they got outclassed. No, they're throwing the ball in the end zone to win the Super Bowl. Ray, I got to tell you, Miami fans, Florida State fans will hate me for saying this, but I'm already on record for saying it. I am rooting for Notre Dame to win the ACC this year. That would just be phenomenal. Jump in the conference, win it, leave. See ya. We used you for 2020. We used and abused you, stepped on you, dug our heel into your throat, and then left. And kicked some dirt on you at the same time. And then we took off and went back to our independent status. When we needed you, we abused you and we took advantage. Kelvin, I have yet to see your name in the live chat. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We hope that you found a home for your college football needs. We talk it every day. We're sitting here in February, May, June, every day talking college football. If we define relevant so rightly, it's just the national champion each year. Okay, again, if that's your definition, then we don't need to discuss anything. Why am I being asked questions? So again, you're asking me a question that we already know the answer to, then why are you asking the question if you disagree with my opinion? Of course you can disagree with my opinion. So LSU was not relevant in 2018. They were not relevant. They did not win a national championship. 2019, LSU suddenly relevant, right? According to your definition. And now we don't know. We'll see if they're relevant still. And when does this relevancy, when does it wear off? Let's ask that. Define that for me. Put the conditions on that. When does that wear off? And you know what you're going to do? You're going to throw out some random time frame that means nothing. Florida State won a national championship in 2013. Are they relevant? It was 7 years ago. I don't know. Based on your definition, because most people bring up these arguments and they haven't defined the argument. So let's go down these teams. Who's relevant? You can all chime in on this one. Florida State, if relevancy is directly tied to winning a national championship. So you're telling me if a team, any team, went to the national championship game for 5 years in a row and lost, they aren't relevant in college football. So Florida State, again, they won a national championship in 2013. So when does this relevance tag expire? When does it magically just evaporate? Were they relevant the next year? They didn't win the national championship. Okay, well, it was just a year. Okay, in 2015, were they relevant yet? Were they still relevant? When did this wear? Has it not worn off? Despite going 7-6, 5-7, 6-7, is Florida State relevant? Going 2 games under 500 the last 3 years. Are they relevant since they won a national championship in 2013? Auburn won a national championship in 2010. They have since had multiple 4 and 5 loss seasons. But they got back to a national championship game in 2013. But, that doesn't matter because you have to win the national championship. So for Auburn, it's been since 2010. Are they relevant? Or did that wear off? Because, of course, there's nothing else that can equal relevancy except winning the national championship. So I guess LSU is the only relevant program in the country, right? And I'll be looking forward to the responses here, but I don't want to pass everything else up. But let's see. It is currently 11:56, and I am about 28 minutes behind on the comments. Hope I don't miss anything, and I certainly want to recognize, I just saw a good comment. Somebody said, Mark, what the hell, something, and then I lost it. See, when there are more comments, it jumps and I lose it. Some people might find that interesting, that comment right there. That's to Mark Thibodeau, I believe. Georgia's garbage, just like Texas, top 5 classes all the time, but never win the big games. Again, define big games. If big games is just national championship games, then say national championship games. If big games are just national championship games, then there's only one relevant team. And then they suddenly become irrelevant the next year. So we have Dennis, the Miami fan, talking about relevant teams. This is an amazing conversation here. Hopefully, I think that most coaches going to the NFL are crazy that have a good thing going in college. He's most likely going to go to the NFL, and he's going to go 4-12, 6-10, 9-7, and be on the brink of doing something where they're going to keep him around. Then he drops back to a 7-9 and gets fired. Florida. What does Florida being relevant have to do with Jameis Winston? Now we're tying relevancy, which of course I would hope we're talking about Florida State, tying it to a player. So Jameis Winston left, they weren't relevant, but they didn't win the national championship his last year. Strange. Georgia is the Buffalo Bills of college football. Well, Buffalo never got close. Well, yeah. They did in the first Super Bowl. Of course, Scott Norwood wide right. But they lost one national championship game. Buffalo lost 4 consecutive Super Bowls. That's close. All right. Mark Thibodeau thinks Ohio State would win the national championship, which of course doesn't matter. I haven't missed anybody getting even. I can go through the history of college football and talk about everybody. So Oklahoma, yes, they have not won a national championship since 2000. So yes, they're irrelevant apparently, even though they win their conference every year and play in the college football playoff. They're irrelevant. I guess depending on when this status of being relevant evaporates, runs out, it just magically disappears. You haven't answered that. I haven't seen the answer to that. I'm trying to get to it. Tube Seller, any help that you and anyone else can provide me, we can start by you contacting me at MarkRogersTV@gmail. MarkRogersTV@gmail. Give me a follow-up conversation right there. That would be awesome. LeBrent, good to see you. Got Troy in here. Exactly, Troy. South Carolina was not a big game for Georgia. It was just another marginal at best SEC team that Georgia should have beaten. So it was not an important or big game for Georgia until they lost the game. Then it became a big game. Thank you, James. Vegas guy. Okay. Big games. Our top 10 wins. Conference championships, college football games, college football playoff games. Okay. There's a definition there that I can generally, we could be splitting hairs when we say top 10 wins. You could beat the number 11 team in the country and they could be your arch rival. And obviously that would substitute as a big game. Or you could beat the number 9 team in the country, the first game of the season, and they could wind up 6-6. And it really didn't turn out to be a big game. But that's at least a criteria that makes sense. Vegas guy is calling top 10 wins, conference championship games, and college football playoff games as big games. Well, Georgia has won a conference championship game, 2017. They won a college football playoff game, 2017. And there's not a whole lot of teams out there that have done this in the college football playoff era. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, LSU. 4 schools other than Georgia have done any of that. So again, Georgia has won a conference championship recently, 2017, 2 years ago, college football playoff game that year, and top 10 wins just last year. They beat Notre Dame ranked in the top 10. They beat Florida ranked in the top 10. They beat Auburn, who slipped out of the top 10 but was ranked in the top 10 at the time of the game. And they beat Baylor, who was ranked in the top 10 when they played in the Sugar Bowl. Okay. Okay, you want Georgia to fire Kirby Smart. So Mark Richt, his last season at Georgia was 2015. His worst season at that point in the seasons leading up to his firing, I believe, was 9-3. We could look it up, but I'm almost positive. I'm talking about the seasons leading up to his firing. I'm not going to go back 7 years before he got fired, because he did have one 6-7 season in which they lost the Liberty Bowl to a group of 5 team. That was his worst year. He had one bad year. Mark Richt finished in the top 10 8 times in 15 years. Okay, he had just, in 2012, taken the national championship team, Alabama, to the 4-yard line, last play of the game. Either needed one more play, 4 more yards, or one more tick on the clock to have another play to possibly win the SEC championship game. An epic, epic game, 28-25, 32-28, 32-28 game to win the SEC. And most likely, we don't know for sure, but most likely based on what we saw when Alabama steamrolled Notre Dame, Georgia would have won the national championship. Well, they didn't, but they were, by most accounts, the second best team in the country in 2012. Well, he only coached 13, 14, and 15, and there were 9-3s in there, 10-2s and 9-3s in there. And this means it took them 100 years to fire him. He was 3 years removed from being the second best team in the country. And like they were supposed to let him go after like a 9-3 season the next year. Bye. So if Kirby Smart gets fired, if you believe what Kirby Smart has produced at Georgia, which is an SEC championship, getting to the national championship game, losing in overtime as the second best team in the country, losing an SEC championship game by 1 touchdown, by 1 score to the team that was the consensus #1 team in the country and still finishing in the top 10, and then getting to another SEC championship game, winning the Sugar Bowl, beating 4 top 10 teams. If that is criteria for being fired, then every coach in the nation should be fired except for 3 right now. Ryan Day, because he's only coached 1 season, but if he continues to lose to at Clemson in the college football playoff, well, then he would get fired just like Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, of course, and Dabo Swinney. They're the only 2 coaches that would be safe under your criteria of firing coaches. Who else would be safe? Not Lincoln Riley. He's getting blown out in college football playoff games. So that's not as good as what Kirby Smart's doing in an easier conference. So, yeah, who else would keep their job? Nobody. There's only 2 coaches, maybe 3, who would keep their job based on your standards. And that's fine, just all the coaches are getting fired every year. All right. So this is what we do here. We have our call-in show, and if we don't get calls, we still take comments in the live chat, and it's an educational experience. Oh man, Jimmy John, we've talked about that. How are they going to choose with no non-conference games? Yeah, there's no way to compare the conferences. No way. So it's pretty simple. The 3 conference champions have to go. They almost have to go. Even if there's a 9-3, well, it would be a 7-3 or 8-3 conference champion. Let's say Texas wins the Big 12 and they go 7-3. They still should go to the college football playoff because nothing's been determined to compare these conferences. It doesn't exist. So the conference champions have to go. There's only 3 and 4 spots. And then you just have to take the team that performed the best in its conference. Do we have any meaningful non-conference games? We really don't. No, we don't have anybody playing anybody of significance. So the one possible factor that I can't imagine it happening would be a Texas winning the Big 12 and then losing their one non-conference game to, who are they playing? They're playing like Texas Southern or somebody, UTEP. If they lost that game, yeah, that would be the aberration that could occur to knock that team out. But you got to go with the 3 conference champions and then the best performing team otherwise. Got to. Why are we talking about John Cooper? I'm not understanding that reference. La Potencia. Good to see you. Gary Moeller versus John Cooper. Okay, you want that rundown? Gary Moeller took over for Bo Schembechler in 1990. Beat John Cooper that year in 1990 on a last-second field goal after John Cooper inadvertently, inexplicably went for it on 4th and 1 at his own 35-yard line. Anyway, that set up a Michigan field goal. Ohio State would have gone to the Rose Bowl with a tie. Anyway, and there were ties back then, youngsters, until 1997. Gary Moeller beat John Cooper 16-13 in 1990. 1991 was the Desmond Howard Heisman pose that he fell over. So it wasn't a great Heisman pose. It gets played all the time, and they usually cut it before he only was up there for about a split second. Anyway, he had just run 100 yards for a touchdown. So he won that game 31-3. Then in 93, they won 28-0 as an underdog. Actually, Michigan, believe this or not, even though Ohio State was in contention for the national championship, I believe Michigan was a 1-point favorite at home, and they won 28-0. And then John Cooper finally broke through against Gary Moeller in 1994 and beat him 22-6 at the Horseshoe. So it was 3-1. If 3-1 is owning, sure, okay, I guess. The Big Ten's not playing. Man, I see a lot of great contributions from people I've never seen before. Bill Rupp, Derek, Old Coot. I hope you guys are locking it in here. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We believe we're on to something special. I've been grinding for 10 years on YouTube, and we're building something now. We're getting it done thanks to you. Yes, we know Oregon beat Florida State in 2014. Yes, they won a playoff game. We know all the playoff scores of all the playoff games. That's something I can guarantee. If you come, you may not agree with my opinion, but if you come here, I'm going to know the scores of the games. I know the records of the teams every year. They're all locked up here. So we got that. 59-20. Yes. Ben, this is the first time I've seen your name. I believe me, Ben Ormond. Maybe I've seen your name before, but big welcome if I haven't. I posted a video about 2 months ago. Please look it up on why Dave Doran should be fired. Absolutely. He's 21-35 in the ACC. He's defeated one ranked team in 17 games. Go watch the video, please. Mark, I would not call Michigan relevant when they cannot beat Ohio State. I'm going to put Michigan in the Texas category in terms of history, fan base, importance to the game, the lore of the sport. Again, the fan base, the TV ratings, the money, the power, the tradition. Michigan will always be relevant in those ways, unless they lose 10 games for 50 years in a row. But in terms of competing for championships, Michigan has not been relevant. Michigan has competed for the Big Ten championship basically once in 14 years. In 2016, they had a really good team. They took Ohio State to the wire. We know the deal, double overtime, and lost. That was Michigan's shot to get to the college football playoff. And they blew it or the refs blew it. I can take either one. Kevin Cook, exactly. Yeah, if Georgia, if Kirby Smart stays there for another 12 years, if Kirby Smart stays at Georgia for another 12 years, and we're sitting here in 12 years, hopefully not exactly right here, but 12 years from now, and he's not won a national championship, and he continues to go 10-2, 11-1 every year, I would not fault Georgia for keeping him and saying the guy is amazing, he's getting it done, and they could justify his success. But I could also at some point them say, enough's enough. We need the guy that's going to close out the deal. Either one could be justified. Oh, man, Blocko, you're right in my wheelhouse. We need 8 teams. I have explained this a million times, and I will at some point in the future. Again, I don't expect all of you to know all my opinions and angles and perspectives on everything, because obviously you guys have lives, and some of you have just joined us recently. But believe me, I have gone on rants about the college football playoff. I've drawn it up. I've given it a format, justified it, the whole deal. 8 teams are needed. At least 8. 8's good. Cheryl probably laughed when she saw that. She was probably like, okay, Mark will have a field day with that. Wow. Getting even is relentless about this Georgia Kirby Smart deal. Mark, they can keep Kirby Smart for all I care. I am just wondering, what are they going to do to win a natty? They're going to continue to do what they're doing, and that's recruit as well as anybody in the country and win a ton of games. It looks like they are attempting to address the offense with a mobile quarterback that's more dynamic than what they've had. Is he better? I don't know. I'm not saying Jamie Newman's better than Jake Fromm, but he's got a different skill set, more tools in the toolbox. And Todd Monken, as offensive coordinator, is promising to be more dynamic, more diverse, more spread, more tempo, more all of that we would expect to see to take advantage of the athletes. So that's how they're going to address that. Oh, man, see, I almost lost it here. Oh, Murder Blaze, haven't seen you for a while. Good to see you. Thanks for encouraging everyone to smash the like button. I had lost track of how many people were on here. Nobody's calling with 170 on the line at midnight, past midnight, at least here on the East Coast. Robert Brooks, good to see you. 28-80-28. Mark, hold off on the Texas winning the Big 12 bit. Shouldn't even be a hypothetical. 28-80-28, if you'd like to call in. Hey, for some reason, nobody's calling me. Nobody's got the number, I guess. We got a ton of new people here, so I should get the number out there. Anthony, I agree with conference champs. If the Big 12 has a champ that has 2 losses, then I believe if there are 1-loss teams in the ACC, SEC, then I believe you have a playoff without the Big 12. No, I don't agree with that. I get your point. I understand your point. So there's sometimes when people disagree that I'm saying my stance would be, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, you're illogical. That's not the case here. I just disagree, but I understand your point, and I think it's a valid point. If we're just selecting the 4 best teams, and again, I laugh at that statement because it's made all the time, and now it's being made more and more by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee each and every year. Well, we just select the 4 best teams. You don't know who the 4 best teams are. You can pretend to know, but you don't. You can say, we think those are the 4 best teams, but I hate the audacity that they say, well, we selected the 4 best teams. No, you selected the 4 that you think are the 4 best. You can't select the 4 best. You don't know. And nothing that's played in that playoff is going to show us that they're the 4 best, because the teams outside the playoff didn't get a chance to play in the playoff. It's the most asinine statement. We just select the 4 best teams. No, you don't select the 4 best teams. You think you do, but even that's inaccurate. Because last year, if you selected the 4 best teams, I even sat here all week of championship week and told people when they said, should Oregon make it, or Utah, or Oklahoma, or Baylor? How should that play out? I said, okay, are you asking me who's earned a spot? Then we need to make and have the discussion between the Big 12 winner and the Pac-12 winner. If you're asking me who the 4th best team is in the country, if you were saying conferences be damned, Mark, select the 4 best teams. You know who the 4 best teams were in the country last year? And I said this way before the championship games and as we were headed down the stretch. This isn't who should be selected, but in my opinion, and I'm not saying my opinion rules, I'm just saying this is my opinion, and I think based on what we saw in the college football playoff, this can be easy to see. 4 best teams in the country last year: LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama. I put that Alabama team, even without Tua in that college football playoff, over Oklahoma any day of the week. They are not going to give up 49 points to LSU in the first half. They're not going to be down by 5 touchdowns in the first half at halftime. The game's not going to be over. They played them in Tuscaloosa. Yes, it was with Tua, but we know Nick Saban, time to prepare. LSU, Alabama, those Alabama athletes, those NFL players, it would have been a really good game. Yeah, maybe LSU pulls away in the 4th quarter, similarly to what they did against Clemson, but it would have been an entertaining, physical, tough, hard-hitting, fast game, and Alabama's defense would not have been abused at the level that Oklahoma's defense was abused. Alabama was the 4th best team in the country last year. We could argue that Penn State, Wisconsin, Oregon were as good or better than Oklahoma. But Oklahoma earned the spot. So the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, as difficult as their job is, because I always give them a disclaimer and a pass that their job is difficult because the math doesn't work from day one. People ask me, what do you think of the playoff system? Well, it's not a playoff system. It's an invitational. Those are 2 different things. A playoff system is objective. The NFL system is objective. We're not sitting here the last week of the NFL season watching and thinking, wonder who they're going to select for the playoffs. Man, I wonder if they'll go with a 9-7 team that's looked really good the last few weeks over the 10-16 that played that weak schedule in the AFC South. Wonder what's going to happen. Well, we're going to have to watch that selection show. No, we got it all laid out. Division winners make it. Wildcard teams, best division, best records. And then if there's a tie, if there was a head-to-head, common opponents, division record, conference record, ... Oh, this is how they select. And it's not even that. It's not even an accurate statement. This is how they select the playoffs in the NFL. No, they have set criteria, and that's how the criteria has determined who makes the playoffs. This is an invitational. It's not a playoff. It's an invitational. And therefore, I'm going to do my best to correct myself and rid my verbiage of the term playoff. I will call it by its name, college football playoff, but when I refer to it, I'm going to accurately refer to it as an invitational. The teams have to be invited. It's not a playoff. A playoff is objective. There's an objective criteria that determines. I challenge anybody who's in the chat right now to give me one criteria of a college football playoff team. What one thing, one accomplishment can be achieved to automatically earn a playoff spot? It doesn't exist. There's not one. It doesn't exist. And I will, if somebody believes that they have one criteria that is a confirmed playoff criteria for the college football playoff, please put it in the chat, and I will tell you why it's not. All right, let's get to that. Thank you, Roger. Appreciate that. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but at least I've defined the conversation and I've given my definition of relevance. Oh yeah, they tied. Yeah. What did I say in 92? Yeah, they tied 13-13. I think I just skipped over that game. Yeah, it was 3-1-1. Thank you. We remember that one well. Kirk Herbstreit crying. And I'm not making fun of him. He was crying as he was walking off the field after that tie. 8 is enough. Perfect. Yeah, I can't really make that comparison right now. That's not. Jim Harbaugh is not going to SEC championship games. Not exactly, but they could, and they would be better if they did replace Rutgers and Maryland with Pitt and West Virginia. That's a more complicated issue than I can address right there. Thank you, Seth. You are correct. JF, I have to tell you that I know nothing about that situation. Do you think Oklahoma committed violations by having a Caleb Williams-led Sooner Summit with the facilities open and highlights showing or the big screen? I don't know anything about that situation. Doesn't sound like any kind of violation. Thank you, Roger. Yes, there should be defined criteria because the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, and again, they have an impossible job. 5 conferences, 4 slots. Add in Notre Dame in like a 2018, they suddenly have 5 conferences, almost like 6 conferences because Notre Dame's an entity unto itself to try to fit into 4 slots. So they have an impossible job. But within that impossible job, their criteria shifts by the year. Sometimes they can rely on, oh, these conference championship games are so important. That's what it was in 2014 because they had the Baylor TCU issue to deal with. So they could lean on conference championship games. Then the next year, 2015, trying to think what the controversy would have been in 2015. That was a pretty clear-cut year. But if 2015 occurred later, there might have been more push for Ohio State because we all know that Michigan State earned the spot. They beat Ohio State head-to-head. They beat them fair and square. But that Michigan State team beat Purdue by 3 points. They lost to a 5-win Nebraska team. They beat an Iowa team that didn't play a ranked team the entire season in the Big Ten championship game by inching over a touchdown with like 3 seconds left it was like 30 seconds left by that much. We know that Michigan State wasn't that good and they get steamrolled by Alabama. So if you were asking me then, I was saying the same thing. If we want the 4 best teams, we're going to put Ohio State in the game because they're the defending national champions. All those kids won a national championship last year. Basically, the entire team's back, and they had one bad week, and they lost to Michigan State. But they're one of the 4 best teams, and we want to see Alabama and Ohio State in a rematch from last year's playoff game because they're the 2 best teams in the country. But Michigan State earned it, so I didn't have an issue with them making it, but we got what we got. So now, that season, if it was replayed, the committee might be like, let's put the best team in. I don't think they would, because there was just too much in terms of a conference championship and a head-to-head win. But in 2016, for those people that think I just trumpet Ohio State football, I was on a rant for days that Penn State should be in the playoff, not Ohio State. And I don't know what led me into all of that, but I was making a point there at some point. Oh, but how the criteria shifted. So in 2016, the conference championships didn't matter nearly as much. And it's understandable to a certain extent. Ohio State had the better record than Penn State, and they had the more impressive wins. But they lost head-to-head, and they didn't win the conference while Penn State won the conference. Penn State should have been in the playoff. 2017, you have a conference champion in Ohio State with 2 losses. You have Alabama as a 1-loss non-champion. They go with Alabama. Alabama justified the selection. But on the same hand, Ohio State was weighed down by that awful Iowa loss. But why was no one looking at the wins comparison? They were focused too heavily on the loss comparison. Alabama's 2 best wins were LSU and Mississippi State, who both were shaky top 15 to 20 teams. Ohio State had beaten Penn State, Michigan, not good that year, 8-4, not Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, and they had another top 15 win. Anyway, they won 3 against top 15 teams. Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, a top 5 team. 3 top 10 wins for Ohio State. Alabama didn't have the quality of wins, but they didn't have that 55-24 hanging around their neck. And again, the comment that I love to make all the time is that if the College Football Playoff Selection Committee is so smart, and if they truly know who the 4 best teams in the country are, how come they don't know the best team in the country? Because this is the first year in 2019 that they were able to select the right team as the number 1 team. For the first 5 years, they incorrectly selected the top seed. They should be selecting the top seed, and that top seed should justify the decision and win the national championship. If they're smart enough to determine the 4 best teams in the country, then they should be smart enough to determine the best team in the country. But they can't do that. They've done it once in 6 years. Best 4 teams still play for the national championship. Don't want to hear about bias. Well, we don't know they're the 4 best teams. Okay. Getting even. We're all living by the same rules. They're not rules. It's a selection. What are the rules? We don't know what the rules are. What are you talking about? We're living by the same rules. Some make it, some don't. No excuse. If we were talking about the NFL playoffs, then your statement's correct. No excuse. No excuse. You went 10-6, they went 10-6, but they won the tiebreaker. No excuse. Those are the rules. We don't have any rules. That's the point. There are no rules. You give me one rule about what you need to do to make the college football playoff, and I will debunk it. You give me any rule you want, and I guarantee I will tell you that it's not a rule. So do you want me to fill in the blank for you? What would be the one rule that you would think this guarantees selection to the college football playoff? What would be the one rule you would think? How about being undefeated? Does that guarantee? You would think a Power 5 team that wins a conference championship and goes undefeated, that guarantees a playoff spot, right? No. Not if all 5 conference champions go undefeated. Somebody has to be left out. So going undefeated and win your conference championship, that's not even a criteria because that can't be guaranteed. There are no criteria to going to the college football playoff. None. Winning your conference, no, that's not one. Going undefeated, that's not one. JF, Mark, have you noticed Alabama recruits receive huge ratings bumps after committing to Alabama? No other team gets that type of treatment. I've heard that. I have not verified it myself. I'm not into recruiting, but I have heard that, yes. The best teams do not always win. How can you not understand that? I don't know if you're talking to me. Yes, the best teams don't always win. We know that. I say that all the time. JT Thompson, but they deserve to win. They won the game on the field that day. Pitt beat Clemson. Syracuse beat Clemson. Iowa beat Ohio State. Purdue beat Ohio State. South Carolina beat Georgia. A long time ago, Stanford, a 41-point underdog, beat USC. Do we think that those teams would have won another time in 10 games played? No. And it was proven throughout the rest of their season, each particular team and the results against like competition, that the team that lost on that day was still better over the course of a season, but they lost the game. Yeah, it happens all the time. Okay. Yeah, I will go with that. That the attempt is to select the 4 most deserving. That's generally what happens. But what about 2018? Oklahoma, Ohio State. Ohio State had a worse loss against Purdue than Oklahoma's Texas loss. Okay. But Ohio State had much better wins than Oklahoma. So what's more deserving? 2 13-1 conference champions. Or how about this Notre Dame team over here that played, not their fault, a down schedule because USC was down, Stanford was down, Virginia Tech was down, Florida State was down. Notre Dame did not play. I'm trying to think who they played in 2018, who turned out to be that good. But I know Virginia Tech was down, Florida State was down, Stanford was down, 8-4 down. USC was 5-7 that year. The best team they beat was Michigan in 2018. The Michigan team that went 10-3. That was Notre Dame's big win at home by a touchdown to start the season. Otherwise, they didn't beat a team that was better than 8-4. 8-4 was the top win for Notre Dame. Okay. They didn't have to play a conference championship game. Did they deserve it? I got to say that watching the conference championship games in 2018 changed my mind because I had always thought, well, Notre Dame, with the way they schedule, and I have great respect for Notre Dame's scheduling approach, that they schedule top teams and go all over the place. But by no fault of theirs, the schedule slumped that year because those teams were down. Their schedule was not difficult. And I'm sitting here watching Texas, Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game with Oklahoma needing to win to get to the college football playoff. Then that night I'm watching Ohio State and Northwestern in the Big 10 championship game thinking Oklahoma's probably going to get selected because they were given the opportunity, again, not Ohio State's fault, but Oklahoma by chance was given the opportunity to avenge its loss. Ohio State was not. That one of those teams was going to get left out of the playoff. And they had to put their season on the line in a conference championship game while Notre Dame was able to sit at home, not play a 13th data point, and be selected to the college football playoff. And that changed my mind about Notre Dame and the college football playoff. Join a conference or be forced to join one. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line.
Hey,
Mark. It's McD Sports 4.
Oh, yeah. McD, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. You?
I'm doing just fine. What's on your mind?
Okay.
Somebody's saying here in the chat a few minutes ago that we should have only had 3 teams in the playoffs. I don't know how that would work, but go ahead. Oh, my word. Come on. That's my guy, Not Used Dexter. Great contributor to the channel, but we got to correct him on that one. All right, go to it.
Yeah. Okay, so I actually didn't know you were on the line until just now, but overall, I do want to talk about the Big Ten. They are coming out saying that they want to start around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's idiotic.
I think that's even. I think it's more of a joke than starting in January.
Okay, McD, I want you to tell me why, because I made the same exact statement and explained why. Fire.
The reason why is multiple reasons. Reason number 1 is because the flu season. Reason number 2, because the players go home for Christmas break. They get their break in between around Christmas. How's that going to work with the scheduling? Those are just 2 reasons I could think of. What are your reasons?
Okay. Mine are totally different. Yours are valid. I did not think in that direction. I was thinking based on the reason we play competitive sports is what? To determine a champion. Okay. On the weekend of Thanksgiving, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 will be approximately in week 9, 8, 9, something in that range. Okay. The Big 10 is going to look like a complete laughingstock at that point. They are going to be beginning their season and playing games that nobody's going to care about. Why would anyone care about those games, regardless of how good the teams are? Because we are going to be watching college football that is going to be played to determine conference championships and then college football playoff selections. So watching Ohio State, even the best game in the Big Ten, Ohio State and Penn State, what's it going to matter? They are not competing with everybody else to be selected for the playoff. So the games don't matter. There's no relevance to those games. None.
I agree. I mean, you're right.
What are they playing for? They're going to look stupid. It's going to be like there's these other games on, these Big Ten games, but they can't play in the playoffs. So why are they playing? They're going to look even worse. At least in the spring, they would be playing by themselves. And if you wanted to watch college football, you were going to watch the Big Ten. But if they're playing at the same time, we're watching Auburn, Alabama, and Ohio State and Penn State are playing, but they can't make the playoffs, so who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I will still watch it because I'm a passionate college football fan.
Sure, I'll watch it. But...
I mean, the average fan don't watch that. I mean, the average person, they're not going to really care over that. But it comes down to a few things. I don't understand Kevin Warren's logic behind this. I mean, the Pac-12 canceled and the MAC canceled, and at least they were transparent about it. Why can't the Big Ten just sit there and just show the vote and show their their reasoning behind their medical information? That's what I'm getting at. Like, I just want to know why. I mean, I might disagree with it, but at least if it's legit enough, I won't sit there and attack the Big Ten over it, even though I might still disagree with it. I don't know why they're being so secretive about this vote. Supposedly it was 12-2. Now it was Ohio State that voted along with Iowa and Nebraska. So, I mean, that's what I want to know. I want to know the vote, if there was a vote.
According to the statement that was released by the Big Ten, and I read it at the top of the broadcast, is that there was a vote and it was 11-3. That is the statement by the Big Ten in responding to the claims by the 8 Nebraska players that the Big Ten did not have sufficient cause nor were transparent about the reasoning of why they canceled. So the Big Ten coughed up an 11-3 decision, and it's been somewhat verified. I don't think it's been confirmed by anything official, but people believe Ohio State, Nebraska, and Iowa to be the 3 teams that voted to play.
Well, I also say this: if that's the case and that's the truth, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin's presidents need to be let go immediately.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment.
I mean, absolute embarrassment if that's the case. I mean, and Maryland does as well. My Terps, I can't stand that guy for a while now. I hated how he handled the whole Jordan McNair situation. But overall, I mean, I still think they have a week, possibly even 2 weeks, to maybe make up their mind if they really want to change course and go ahead and start the season when the Big Ten, SEC, not when the Big Ten, when the Big 12, SEC, and ACC are starting. Even if you started like on October 3rd or even October 10th, I think you can get your 10 games in.
Okay.
Or
here's what we've got, McD. We were talking about this as soon as it was determined, as soon as the news was leaked that the Big Ten was considering playing on Thanksgiving weekend to start its season. We were doing our Ohio State live show, and I simply looked at a calendar and went with a 10-game season, gave everybody one bye week, so you need 11 weeks to play. They could start as late as October 24th. They could play 10 games in 11 weeks, take 1 week off, no Big Ten championship game, just the team with the best record wins the Big Ten, take 1 week off, and they could sync up with the college football playoff and have their champion play in the college football playoff on October 24th. They could wait that late. So why play on Thanksgiving weekend? To start your season, you're going to look like a bunch of morons playing while everybody else is competing for a championship. It's just idiot. Can you imagine the weekend of the college football playoff? That Friday night, we're watching Georgia, Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma. And the Big Ten's playing the next day a bunch of games that nobody cares about because they can't play for a championship. They're playing like their 7th week of the regular season.
Unbelievable. I mean, I will push back on something you said there. I do think they want to have 2 to 3 bye weeks because of the COVID. So that's why I said October 10th.
You're right. It makes more sense, but I was trying to squeeze it in as late as possible. But
yeah,
you're right, moving it back. But they could go as late as with 1 bye week. And actually, they might have it would be a little bit much to ask of your playoff team to go right from the regular season into the playoff. But they, in a sense, would have 2 bye weeks under my plan and start October 24th because they would have the bye week between the end of the regular season and the playoff game.
Yeah, but I still think there's at least a week of a window. I mean, I think what happened is they panic, and I always say that one of the worst things you can do is panic, and I think that's what happened. And I really hope they change their minds up. I know Kevin Warren said the decision's final. I'm not going to get into Kevin Warren because I think that was a bad hire for the Big Ten.
Oh my goodness! Honestly. What a debacle!
Looking at right now. The Big Ten's credibility is going to go bye-bye if they actually go with Thanksgiving, starting with Thanksgiving.
I so much want this season to be completed by the ACC, the Big 12, and the SEC for the reason that we all do. We want to watch football and we want to see a champion crowned, and I'm going to consider it a legitimate championship, and I've explained at other times why. But just to show that this Kevin Warren decision was so idiotic, and there is no other. So like somebody asked me in the live chat earlier, when is Kevin Warren going to be fired? And I said, well, there's got to be a conclusion to this, because if the ACC, the Big 12, and the SEC aren't able to finish a season, then he's going to look a lot better, and his decision's going to seem to make sense. But there's going to have to be so we need to see a result of all this. But if there's a season to be played in college football and the Big Ten's left out of it and losing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and their elite league looks awful, and they're not able to send in Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan, whomever to a college football playoff, then that's reason enough to fire Kevin Warren.
Well, they won't fire him because he's new with that new contract. I mean, I feel like we're stuck with him for another 2 years at least.
Yeah.
Which is sad, to say the least. But I still think they have a week. I give it a very slim shot, but if they can convince some of these ADs, like I know Malin's AD, Rutgers AD, well, not AD presidents, whatever. Malin's president, Rutgers president, Minnesota's president, and some of these other presidents that haven't, that for these Big Ten schools, like, that don't really matter that much. I think they could start. I think if they could do it this week, I mean, start the season October 3rd. I mean, I wouldn't really care if they start a week later than the FCC, in the ACC, and the Big Ten. I mean, hell, the ACC starting September 12th, so they're starting a bit earlier than the FCC and Big Ten. But we'll see what happens. I'm glad to see three out of the group of five conferences are playing.
Yes.
Starting this week, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know the games aren't really that big. There's one interesting game with BYU and Navy, which I think is going to be a good game. But outside of that, I know the rest of the games aren't really that interesting.
No.
But, I mean, I'm still going to watch them.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's watch some football.
Yeah.
McD, I've got a question for you, because this was a conversation that you might have caught some of it that was getting me fired up about the college football playoff. So to you, do you believe that there is any criteria to making the college football playoff? Meaning, is there anything that a team can do to guarantee that they will make the college football playoff? Does that exist? Anything? Because I'm stating that criteria does not exist, and I want to see if somebody can find one criteria that exists that guarantees a spot in the playoff.
I mean, I've never seen a team that was undefeated miss the playoff. That was in the Power Five, but we never had a situation when there were five teams that were undefeated after the conference championship.
Exactly. So that's
no.
Yeah. So that's not a criteria to make the playoff, because it could happen that all five teams plus Notre Dame could all be undefeated, and there would have to be somebody left out. So there is nothing that exists that can guarantee a playoff spot. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Clemson start out the season number 1, and they dropped to number 3 last season because they were in the ACC and they went undefeated. Before the playoff system, they would have been out of the championship. So, there's no criteria. I agree.
All right, McD, I appreciate the call. Anything else?
Yeah. Nah, just the Michigan fans have to be, and the Penn State fans, they got to call for this president's jobs, in my opinion. That's the only thing I would conclude with. And fire Kevin Warren. Thanks for taking my call, Mark. Go Terps. If we have a season, we'll see what happens.
Thanks, McD. Appreciate it, man. What's the worst record to make the playoffs this year? News Dexter was annoyed with me for some reason, even though I was making sense. Probably that's the reason. All right. All right. I appreciate everybody in the live chat. I think I've gotten to everything possible. And thank you so much. We've been on for quite a long time here. Yeah, we're pushing 3 hours. Thank you so much for joining us here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And with over 170 on the line at one point, keeping in mind that I got the notification out about 2 hours before we broadcast, but we don't typically have a Monday night show at 10 o'clock Eastern time. I want to just state my appreciation for everybody who jumped on and made this happen and called on the phone. And then obviously the live chat kept us rolling for all this time. So thank you so much for joining. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern time for Florida State Seminoles Live. So regardless if you're the team that you root for, please join us then, because as you can see, regardless of the team that we spotlight, all college football fan bases always welcome. You guys make this happen. I just talk, analyze. We all have a good time. We, of course, are the voice of college football together right here at Mark Rogers TV. Thank you.